Okay, so this is my first pass with the tripod automated, and you'll see that it has a little bit a more even placement than my handheld, right? I liked my handheld because I could see the water back there, but the tripod one is a little bit more even, and it gives me more of the trash can, gives me more of the rocks in this path. So I think I'm going to use that one in actuality. And I like how the sky works. And I could use the ones that I placed by hand, but it's really kind of all the same because this just chunks from different exposures in the same way. But it does it in a way that's less intuitive doing it by hand. So it actually matches up the blues of the sky in a way that make more sense. But it's still, because I use collage instead of something else, it's still only using the information from my raw exposures. It's not making anything up. And so the gradation of the sky is why I will like to use this instead. It saves me a lot of processing headaches later, trying to match exposures. Because this already matched them just fine. Because in fact, the sky wasn't changing color with each exposure, and my settings weren't changing with each exposure. It's just that when you take a photo, the light at the edges of the frame is a little bit different than the light in the middle of the frame. So the sky color is going to be slightly different at the edges of each frame. So now, what's the next step? Well, I've saved this. I want to save it as a JPEG, because that's the first thing that I will turn in. And I have all these different options, so I'm going to use Pass 1. And I've got a lot of overlap here I can use. Remember, we take the quality down until it's less than 5 megabytes, just for the JPEGs that we put up to PhotoBucket. So I'm going to mark that with orange, because that's the first thing I'm going to upload. Now, I need to find a good composition within this. And so I'm going to use my guides, and I'm going to see what my limitations are. If I wanted to go the entire distance, which I don't really have any reason to, but I'd have to cut it off there, because you see how it hooks up at this last frame. That's basically as tall as I can make it. But I think I want a little bit more of this path. So instead, I'm going to limit it maybe to this width. So you're finding the composition you want. So I think I like this. And I'll get rid of the trash can, and I'll get rid of the tree. And then there's other options too. I could crop to that. If I use the cropping tool, remember that you can also rotate your crop in different ways. So if I wanted to rotate it up a little bit, I could still get the tree and get more of the path. And you are more than welcome to do that. But then you see I have empty space there that I have to bring it down to. And so finding a good composition is kind of an exploration with this project. Just push this up just a tiny bit. And the better quality your exposures, the more options you have. So I like that composition okay. But I think I like this one better without the trash can having to be in there. Okay, so then my next job is to crop to what I think is the best composition. So after using my guides, I can line up the crop tool to those guides. hit return, turn off my guides, make sure I didn't overshoot it, which I often do. So check my edges. Yeah, I need to crop in just a little bit more. Oh, I wish this tool wasn't so sensitive. Trying to position this exactly. That's why I'll often use guides, is it's usually easier to stick to guides than to try to adjust it outright. There we go. And now all the way over. And just short of right there. All right. So now I crop it. I get rid of my guides. I check all my corners. And I like all of the composition except for right here. This is kind of what's called a tangency. And it's not the best in design because it's kind of uncomfortably touching the edge. And I wonder if it's worth cropping it even a little bit lower just to avoid that tangency. Like to there. Remember, cropping is the only tool we have that allows us to change the whole format of our image. And so it's a powerful tool that's important. All right, now I think I like this a little bit more. So that's my composition. I have a slight curve to the horizon. I like how the clouds are moving in. And I like the strong hook kind of S-curve we get of the path and how it leads us back into different directions. Okay, so this is the second thing I save. So I'm going to save this now as my assignment. So Carl Fry, assignment 5, cropped, because I've chosen which one I'm going to crop. And then I'm going to save that also as a JPEG, because that will be the second thing I upload. These are big files, so they take a little while to save. Now my exposures all work well together. I can even increase my quality a little bit because now I've cropped it. Just keep it under 5 megabytes or less. Because I have a lot of exposures and they all kind of match up pretty well, I don't have to go individually into each exposure and then process them. But if your exposures are way off, you might have to go in individually while they're in Photoshop mode and play with their levels just to get their light exposures to match. And I would have had to do this if I pieced them together just by hand. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So you have that option. And you can also color correct if you need to, because they're all separate layers here. And so if I had to go to color balance for whatever reason and make something match what was around it, I have that ability while it's still a Photoshop file. So I have my first 2 JPEGs. Now, this next step, I have to be happy with all the layers as they are, and I'm going to flatten the image, layer, flatten image, and save it as a TIFF. Same name, Carl Fry, assignment 5, cropped TIFF. Always with LZW. And why do I save it as a TIFF? Because now I can do post-processing on it. But even before I do post-processing, I can just do regular processing, right? Regular levels adjustments, optimize my histogram. My histogram's pretty nicely optimized already. I guess I can deepen the shadows a little bit. Or if I wanted to limit some of the highlights, make it look more like it's evening, I could do that. I could also just do some color balance to it, pushing more blues in the shadows, more warms in the highlights. Maybe a little bit more red to combat that green. You know, I can make those adjustments. And actually, I like that color balance adjustment. But one of the best tools I have are the actions. And especially, let me get off the crop tool here. Especially going to full run up F9 to view, playing it. Remember, make sure you only have one file open in Photoshop before you do this. Press play on one flattened TIFF image and just let it do its thing. And it will push your landscape in all these different directions. And then you'll decide how to use those actions to best finish off your photo. And this is just the color processing, which is the most forgiving. And also optimizing things like the value and the edge control. Because you do have the high pass filter max texture one that I'll often use. Now it's all done. I go to Window, Arrange, Float All in Windows. I hit F9. I can see them all. It's hard to see them. I know I don't want to go black and white. That would be an awful shame for all the work we've done. I know I don't want to go sepia, so I can just close these outright. And then I look at some of these really extreme ones. And this looks like a vintage golf course photo, you know. Pretty different. Maybe there's something there I want to use. The vintage one, no, that looks pretty boring. This one, no, nothing too interesting. This one, no, just too green. This one, too bright. This one, too dull. This one, too high contrast. But this one, max texture, yes, that might be useful. This one, really extreme color, maybe. This one I like a lot. This one I don't like so much. This one is ridiculous. The Polaroid, yeah, but that's pretty much the same as this cross-processing one. Which one do I like more? Actually, in this case, yeah, I often like the cross-processing better, but in this case, I like the Polaroid one better. It's a little bit sharper. Okay, and then I get back to my original. Remember, it's one flat layer. It's my TIFF. Now I'm going to go into my different actions. I'm going to make sure they're flattened by going to Layer, Flatten Image. This one already is flattened. I hit Command A to select all. I hit Command C to copy it. I can then close it, and then Command V to paste it on top of my original. And let me bring them all in that way. I have 4 different ones that I like. Copy them over, paste them on. You'll get pretty fast at this once you're comfortable with it. Make sure you check their layers and that they're flattened first. Otherwise, you'll bring over something you don't want. Select all, copy, close, don't save, paste on. And last one. Command copy. Oh, gotta flatten it first. Copy it, close it, don't save. I said I'd try to finish it. So now I have a minute. I arrange these. And I do one by one, and I blend them in with opacity. And I'll go up close. And I see, okay, that's with nothing, that's with everything. I want somewhere in between. About like that. That's with everything, that's with nothing. I want a little bit there. So you see, it's helping me kind of make color decisions that really make this feel like it has more depth. And then the last one I always do is the max texture one. And often I will use like a soft light blending mode